Hey, so glad you could make it. Come in, come in. You're a little late, but that's fine. Take a seat. And now we can begin. Welcome, you, to my one-man show. This is the art of starting over. Actually, can we do one more take? I think I can do it better this time. Yeah? This is
Space Marine 2, from the maker who brought you walls with lights and skulls of doom, comes a project so daring, so costly, and so late to the party. Seriously, my guy, what have you been doing? The game has been out for almost a year now. Everyone's already cashed in on this. Oh, we're still just about relevant? Okay, let's do it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know I can do it. I've got it this time. I promise. I got this. All right? Okay. This is the I've had enough. Whoa. Picture the scene. The month is August. Last year, Space Marine 2 is just around the corner, and whilst excitedly browsing the internet, I come across the McCragg's Chosen DLC. The connection? Instant. The desire? Palpable. So naturally, I come to the conclusion that I simply must own a physical manifestation of this over-engineered flaying contraption. Part sword, part chainsaw, and part overcompensating for something, I'm sure. Unfortunately for me at the time, the only resources I had to work with in terms of source material were these two promo images. That's two promo images, which I can now die happily knowing that I will never have to look at again. But we move on. So, having made only one prop weapon in the past, I was overcome with confidence that I'll be able to knock this out of the park within the time constraints and have it ready in time for the launch. Yep. I wrote this ages ago. I have to put it in. Clearly, that didn't pan out. Unless you've been in the coma for the past year, in which case, welcome back, nothing's changed, it's all still chaos, and so is my time management, so with all that in mind, let's just get on with this, shall we? Let's go.
My main challenge was to keep this looking like a sword and not like the BFG. No, not that BFG, this one.
Oh shit.
With that in mind, I quickly modeled them in Lightburn and sent them to my laser cutter. I designed them to stack in order to get my desired width, which I will later shave down to the final shape. At this point, I was so happy with my progress, I completely forgot to double check the measurements before cutting 30 teeths worth of blanks and using up all my good EVA foam. And by now, some of you might be wondering where exactly I got that number from.
And while this isn't canon, it's a chainsword, it's the best number I could extrapolate from the source material, as well as, and I cannot stress this enough, the number that actually worked best with the actual measurements that I had on hand. Yeah, it just made sense. And I would be remiss if I didn't share this point with you. Don't dwell on the measurements in the plan. Things change. Materials aren't perfectly sized, you didn't account for all the variables, and yes, we did all see you make that mistake. And the other one. And then like 7 more after that, but that's fine. Adapt your plans. Work off the measurements that you actually have, and accept the fact that not every project is going to be 100% perfect, because none of them will be. I mean, I even rewrote this paragraph several times before recording this, and this is probably recording number 12, so yeah, you get it. The teeth in question. These ones? Yeah, I cut them too small. And I didn't have enough of the nice EVA foam left to cut them again, so at this point all I could do is make like a central point around which a mechanism turns, and say it with me, pivot. Let's go!
And tried to combat my incompetence by making a neat little EVA tooth burger stack delicious. But even with my overflowing confidence, I took the extra step to make a jig in order to get fast and repeatable results. And I loved my little jig. It was good for marking, it was good for gluing, it was good from different angles. Unfortunately, what it wasn't good for was foreshadowing. And now we're on to the next step with the correctly sized white EVA foam teeth, which I'm lining up here. And they will not be triple stack, but a very demure double. Progress?
I guess.
Now, my new teethlings were looking a lot better, but betterer still they could become after dealing with their messy backsides. This has taken a turn, I'm sorry. I attached a strip of 2mm foam to cover the glue lines, and I was finally starting to feel a shred of pride. So I cut and sanded them, facing my mortality in the process somewhat. Then they got a healthy dose of primer and a very secretive off-screen dose of Macragge Blue. I wasn't done with the teeth just yet, but let me give you a break from my voice and leave you with the mesmeric repetitiveness of the next few embellishment stages. Anyone can make a pretty looking prop, but I wanted function, I wanted action, I wanted moving chainsaw teeth, of course. And while this is probably something very easy to figure out for someone who knows anything about engineering, I turned to the overspilling chalice of free advice for people who are not afraid to fail, that is YouTube. I stumbled across some Chainsaw Man cosplay tutorials which looked similar to what I wanted to achieve and very helpfully listed the necessary materials. So I bought the little RC wheel motor and laser cut some plywood gears to drive the belt mechanism. The video examples had large cogs made out of cardboard which I knew were not going to be strong enough, but not having the confidence to make a proper linked chain that interacted with the teeth and the cogs, I focused on the second method, which relied on tension to move the smooth belt around the chainsword. A few more trips to the laser dome later and I had everything I needed. I made a tasty plywood foam burger thing and embedded the bearings on either side. I was now close to being able to run my first test, but I still didn't have a way to guide the belt along the length of the chainsword. So I got a square PVC pipe and hacked it up to make room for the moving apparatus, and things were starting to take shape. Eager to find out whether my geared up flesh construct had any life in it, I cut a 3mm foam belt, temporarily taped it together, and I plugged it in for the first time. Sadly, it was about as anticlimactic as the Sanguinary Guard wing redesign, and we all remember that. Bruh. It spun, kind of, but the puny motor shattered, and so did my hopes of an easy win. It was at that point I knew I had to scale things up and build in some power redundancy, so I got a bigger power thing. Following the fate of the motor, the PVC pipe also got upgraded for a plywood shell, which would serve as a framework for the mechanism as well as a base to later glue all the foam parts to. Back to the motor, and it's important to highlight that with great torque comes great destructive potential, really. At least I'm pretty sure that's what Uncle Ben said. No, that's Uncle Phil. Wait, wrong Uncle Ben again, forget it. So I made some very precise measurements, of course, and it fit like a glove. Well, the kind of glove that there's only one left in the store and it's not quite your size, but you convince yourself that you can definitely fit into it. And you know it's too small and everyone else knows it's too small, but you just keep wearing it because delusion. But hey, look at it. It fits, alright? Shut up. With the gears now in place, I started working on the track for the belt, which would also act as a bridge between the two sides.
Stop it.
Some minor mispositioning later, and I applied Teflon tape to all contact surfaces and continued assembling the track. Don't ask me why I decided to put packing foam in all the cavities. Instead, maybe justify my decision in the comments, A quick sanity check before moving on to the next stage, and it was time to right some past wrongs. When I initially cut the side panels of Swordy McSwordface here, I may have been a tad trigger happy with my measurements, by which I mean I didn't actually reference them off anything, and thus I had some parts that didn't quite fit. So I cut them again, to the same dimensions. But before you go saying things in the comments, no, seriously, please do. I need the human interaction. It actually worked out to my advantage. You see, the dowels holding the gears needed something to hold them in turn. So having the double thickness allowed me to drill one of the boards while using the other as a nest of sorts. Boring exposition out of the way, you can now bear witness to my genius solution to offset the two panels. That was a bunch of squared dowels, but hey, it worked. Slightly out of sequence here, but I really need to get a handle back on this situation and make a handle, which is why I sourced this angled flow pipe number in my local hardware store, which gave me some hope, so I ran with it. Shortly after paying for it. I had zero idea whether this will hold the weight of the sword, so I did the best thing I could think of, which was adding 3 different types of glue and using all the screws. Last, but certainly not last, I needed a belt, and since I couldn't use the one I made earlier for reasons, I started anew by cutting out a strip of the 3mm foam and joining both sides with contact cement. Cemented in the idea that this alone will not be strong enough and lacking a distinct visual flair, I laser cut these panels from the same adhesive-backed foam and stuck them to each other, leaving enough spacing for the teeth. And with that,
we've now arrived at the point where I can no longer thrash around the perennial, and I'm gonna have to eventually masticate the projectile and get on with putting this together. Now the next steps will involve me putting the belt, the gears that we have here, the washers and everything else inside before sealing everything shut, and I have to triple check that everything that needs to be there and is ran through properly, because once everything is closed, it will be super glued and nailed and screwed and whatever point of attachment you want to include in there. So it's kind of a one chance to do this right, and I've notoriously been really good at doing things first time, the right time. So yeah, let's see how this goes, and if it doesn't, then I'll just burn everything down for the insurance money and start again.
Anyway, glue up time. Insert generic maker comment about the number of clamps being disproportionate to the job demands. I'll spare you. One more test for good measure. And congratulations were in order. I had made a box I could hold.
Nice.
But a chainsword it did not resemble yet, so let's make it chainswordier? I don't know. Starting with the bridge thingy. Top angled something. This thing, yes. I knew I didn't want to make it from foam because I wanted the precision, so I turned to 3mm plywood, which took a little negotiation, but it ended up cutting and engraving pretty well. I also laser cut these little trapezoids, which I used as a framework for stability and even spacing for the decorative panels. Everything got glued to the core, which was just a 20mm square dowel, and I base coated it in Vallejo liquid gold in preparation for the next step. The next step being, and let's say this together, doing the previous step all over again because my initial measurements did not take into account the extra thickness of the EVA foam face layer, which made the part too small and therefore completely unusable. Yay. The only difference here was that I opted for MDF instead of plywood, which was a lot more stable under the laser and took engraving like a champ. Some more gluing and filling, and here we have them side by side to prove I didn't just play you the same footage twice. You're welcome. You may have noticed from the previous shot that
This distance
between the handle and the trigger guard is too much.
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, and fixed.
Are you sure about that? This dissolution
So I had to break everything apart and come up with a new solution without burning my workshop down for the insurance money. The stress levels involved explain why the footage is somehow missing, but we fixed it and it's better than ever. It's fine. Just move on.
So, I find myself at an impasse. I have technically run out of things to do, which does not necessarily mean that I am finished by any stretch of the imagination. There's still loads to do here. But I am just unwilling to take the next step and commit to permanence. Which is why I'm not going to in this video. But at this point, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content so far and if you want to see the rest of the sword. I'm not holding it hostage, I promise. There will be a second video with the good stuff. And there is a reason for that. The next video will showcase a lot of different techniques, materials, tools that I've used and learned in the process to get this to the point where I'm happy with it, to then put it on YouTube. So yeah, I promise it will be worth it, because at the end, we will have this to show for it. And isn't that beautiful? So yeah, stick around, I'll see you in the next one. Bye! He's so big now.